Some nights, darkness is more than just the absence of light, it's a warning. It settles over the land like a heavy blanket, muffling sound, sharpening every shadow, and making the familiar suddenly feel strange. On these nights, the world seems to hold its breath, as if it knows something is coming. In Keddie, California, April 11, 1981, was one of those nights. The town, nestled deep in the mountains, was quiet, almost too quiet. The sun had set, leaving behind a sky streaked with the last traces of gold and purple, and the streets were empty, save for the occasional porch light flickering on. The Sierra Nevada air was crisp, the pines peaceful, but beneath that calm, something sinister waited. The forest, so often a place of comfort and adventure, now seemed to hide secrets in its mist and shadows. Cabin 28 would soon become the epicenter of a tragedy that would haunt the town for decades. Its wooden walls, once echoing with laughter and life, would soon bear silent witness to unimaginable horror. Keddie was a place where neighbors trusted each other, doors were left unlocked, and safety felt real. Children played freely, and families gathered on porches to share stories as dusk settled in. But that safety was an illusion, shattered by a rage that crept silently into the night. The darkness outside was nothing compared to the darkness that would soon invade the heart of the community. As the moon rose, a human shadow fell over Cabin 28, one filled with violence. Footsteps barely disturbed the gravel, but their intent was unmistakable. No one heard the horror unfolding inside, the walls kept their secrets, and the night offered no warning to those sleeping nearby. The world outside remained oblivious. Crickets chirped, the wind rustled, life went on. The ordinary sounds of night masked the extraordinary terror taking place just beyond the threshold. The silence was chilling, a silence that allowed the unimaginable to happen. It was as if the night itself conspired to keep the truth hidden, to muffle every cry. We must return to that night, to the darkness inside that small cabin. Only by stepping back into those shadows can we hope to understand what happened. There, a mother, her children, their friends, and someone else, a watcher, a predator, would collide. In a single night, innocence would be lost, and lives would be changed forever. The Keddie story isn't just true crime, it's a real-life horror story. It's a tale that chills the blood and leaves questions echoing in the silence. The question isn't just who did it, but how such evil could happen at all. How could a place so peaceful become the stage for such brutality? This is the story of a night when silence screamed. When the ticking of a clock became a countdown to terror. The shadows stretched from the pines into the heart of a family. They crept across photographs, across memories, leaving darkness in their wake. The peace of Keddie was about to be shattered forever. The sound of breaking glass would echo for years in the minds of those who lived there. The events inside Cabin 28 would leave scars that never healed. The cabin itself would become a symbol of loss, its windows boarded, its rooms left to gather dust and sorrow. The darkness held secrets, and those secrets would haunt Keddie for generations. Whispers of what happened would linger long after the night was over. The silence before the storm was the last peace the town would ever know. It was a fragile calm, soon to be swept away by tragedy. What happened next would change everything. The shock would ripple through families, through friendships, through the very soul of Keddie. The story begins with a single, unanswered question. Why? Why here? Why them? Why that night? And so, we step into the darkness, searching for answers in the silence, hoping to find the truth hidden in the shadows of Cabin 28. The Sharp family had come to Keddie for a fresh start, hoping the quiet mountain air would bring them peace and new beginnings. Glenna Sue Sharp, her 5 children and their friends, filled Cabin 28 with laughter, warmth, and the simple joys of small-town life. On April 11, 1981, Sue was home with her youngest sons, Rick and Greg, and their friend Justin Smart, enjoying a quiet evening together. Her daughter Sheila was spending the night at a neighbor's house, while her son John and his friend Dana were out with friends, planning to return late. The night seemed perfectly ordinary. Kids settling in for bed, Sue waiting up, the cabin wrapped in a gentle, familiar quiet. No one suspected that anything was amiss, or that danger could be lurking so close to home. John and Dana eventually returned home, unaware that their arrival would coincide with the approach of uninvited guests. The peace was shattered, not by a sudden outburst but by a quiet, methodical violence that crept through the cabin's walls. In those final, unnoticed moments, the last traces of normalcy slipped away from the Sharp family. The night that began like any other would end in tragedy. What happened inside Cabin 28 remains a mystery, shrouded in darkness and unanswered questions. The events of that night would haunt the small community for decades, leaving scars that never truly healed. But the aftermath was clear: horror, chaos, and a sense of evil that seemed to linger in the air long after the crime was discovered. Two intruders entered. How? No one knows. Their arrival was silent, their intentions brutal. What followed was a sadistic, prolonged attack that left the cabin in shambles and the victims with no chance to escape. Sue, John, and Dana were bound, tortured, and murdered with knives, a hammer, and appliance wire. The violence was methodical, almost ritualistic in its cruelty. The brutality was shocking, personal, vicious, and thorough. Investigators would later struggle to comprehend the sheer savagery of the scene. In the next room, Rick, Greg, and Justin slept, miraculously unharmed, shielded by fate or luck from the horror unfolding just steps away. Justin later recalled seeing two men, one with a mustache, one taller, holding a hammer. Their faces would haunt his dreams for years. Terrified, he pretended to sleep, hoping the intruders would overlook him in the darkness. The killers covered the bodies with a blanket, then took something, or someone with them, vanishing as mysteriously as they had arrived. Sue's daughter Tina, who had been sleeping in the living room, was gone. Her disappearance deepened the tragedy and confusion. The killers vanished into the night, leaving behind carnage and silence, a silence that screamed with unanswered questions. The horror lasted hours. The silence that followed was even heavier, pressing down on the survivors and the town itself. The children left alive would never be the same. Their innocence was stolen in a single unthinkable night. The town awoke to a nightmare, its sense of safety shattered forever. The darkness had claimed more than lives. It had stolen peace, trust, and the feeling of home. And Tina had vanished without a trace, her absence echoing through the hearts of all who knew her. At sunrise, Sheila Sharp returned home and found a nightmare. Inside Cabin 28, she discovered the bodies of her mother, brother, and his friend. She ran for help. Police arrived to a scene of chaos and blood. The three youngest boys were found alive, traumatized but unharmed. Tina was missing. News of the murders spread quickly, turning shock to fear. The community locked doors, held their children close, and searched the woods for Tina. The idyllic resort became a place of terror. Days turned to weeks. Hope for Tina faded. The town was forever changed. The investigation was flawed from the start. Evidence was mishandled, leads ignored, and the crime scene contaminated. Suspicions fell on Martin Smart, Justin's stepfather, and his friend Bo Bubidi, both with violent pasts. Justin claimed he saw them in the cabin that night. Martin wrote a letter hinting at guilt, but police ignored it. Both men left town soon after. The case went cold. Decades later, new evidence pointed back to them, but it was too late. The truth slipped through the cracks. Justice never came for the victims. Martin Smart and Bo Bubid were never charged. Both died with their secrets. Tina's remains were found 3 years later, confirming her murder but offering no closure. The surviving Sharp children were separated, their lives shattered. Justin Smart carried the trauma of what he witnessed. New evidence and DNA linked suspects to the scene, but no arrests followed. The case remains officially unsolved. The truth is known, but justice was denied. The scars left by that night never healed. The story deserved an ending but never got one. Ketty was left with only questions. Keddy Resort is gone, but its dark legend remains. The murders ended an era of innocence, leaving the town haunted and suspicious. The case became a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil can strike anywhere. For locals, the Keddy murders were a real-life boogeyman story. The lack of answers keeps the wound open. The story endures because the horror was real, the pain lasting. The wind through the pines whispers the names of Sue, John, Dana, and Tina. The silence of that night echoes still. Some questions may never be answered. The scars of Keddy are forever.